So recently in Mayapur, we were listening to a lecture, and Vaisheshika Prabhu said that he was told by Radhanath Swami that the first duty of a leader is to be happy. So you become happy when you take care of your Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada used the word quite often, self-envy. And by self-envy, he meant you do something which is self-destructive. And by self-destructive, he meant you do something which harms your spiritual life. So if you do something that's harmful for your spiritual life, then it's considered you're actually envious of yourself. So in Sanskrit, envy also means violence. Because you might think, how could anyone be envious of themselves? Because you're usually envious of somebody because you want what they have. So how could you be envious of yourself because you already have what you have? So in this sense, envy is a kind of self-hatred. Like you know you should do something that's good for you, but you don't do it, or you shouldn't do something that's bad for you and you do it. That's a kind of self-envy. So, should we ask questions now or should we go to the next one? Okay. So we have about 5 minutes for each one. So, well, we started a little late, so we have less than 5 minutes. Okay, we'll go on to number 2. So number 2 is you hold onto grudges. You know what a grudge is? It's resentment. Grudges are like weights that burden you. that suck your energy. And impact you physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And cause the toxic past to create a toxic future. Grudges are emotional cancers. So, if you're a leader and you have a grudge against somebody, then you may not treat them fairly. And you may favor one devotee that you like over a devotee that you have a problem with. So we saw that example in Prabhupada, that many of his disciples did bad things, but he never held a grudge. If they would apologize, then he would just forget it. The second point is that holding onto a grudge is a form of subtle anger. And anger is a symptom of the mode of ignorance. And we have numerous examples in our Shastra of devotees being mistreated but not becoming angry with the person who mistreated them. And so we even have examples of them being merciful to the people who hurt them. So it's not difficult to be nice to people if they're nice to you. It's just difficult to be nice to them when they're not nice to you. Now, Prabhupada said something very, I think, amazing about forgiveness. He said, forgiveness is the foremost quality of those who are practicing spiritual life. Because that means forgiveness also means tolerance. And it also means patience. and it also means sensual and emotional control.
它也意味着这种去控制感官情绪。
And it means being merciful to those who are unkind to us.
也意味着去同情怜悯那些虐待我们的人。
So that's why Prabhupada said it's the foremost quality of a Vaishnava, because to be forgiving, you have to have all these other qualities.
所以呢，这就是为什么圣人帕拉的说这个宽恕里面中间的应该具备的什么样的品质？因为你只有具备了这个宽恕的话呢，你就能够培养其他的。
Okay, let's go to number 3, the third dysfunction.
我们看一下这个第3点。
The third dysfunction of highly ineffective people.
是有关这个低效人士的社会习惯的第3点。
These are dysfunctions that make it difficult for people to be successful and also make it difficult for anybody to work with these kinds of people.
就由于就是他的这种低效呢，然后呢，就是不仅让他自己没能在人生中获得这种成功，同时呢，让他与其相处的人呢也感到难以合作。
So the third one is you maintain the emotional maturity of a child.
第3点就是说呢，你保持在一个孩童的一个情绪的一种状态。
Your ability to manage your emotions is one of the most important factors in achieving success or in achieving good relationships and achieving Krishna consciousness.
所以呢，无论我们就是说要在我们的这个生活中获得成功，或者获得一段好的关系，或者在Krishna知识中进步的话呢，我们都需要成功的控制住我们的情绪。
So emotional control means you might feel an emotion, but you might feel an emotion, but if you act on it, then let me start over again. Emotional control means, for example, you feel anger, but you don't act on it.
情绪控制呢，它就是意味着你同时其实是可以感受的那种情绪的，但是呢，你并不因此而行动。就比如说，你可能感到愤怒，但是呢，你的行为表现是没有就是愤怒而显示。
So you know how to process your emotions in a way that they don't degrade you.
就是你知道以一种不会让你降格的一种方式来表达你的愤怒。
If you've ever done something and then you later regretted doing it, it's because you lost emotional control.
曾经做过这样的事情，就是你为过去做过的这个事情感到后悔，因为当时你没有控制自己的情绪。
Well, let me be more specific. If you ever said something that you regretted saying, probably it means you lost some emotional control.
就比如说，你可能后悔自己当时说了某些话，就意味着你当时就是失去了这种对情绪的一个控制。
Now, sometimes we see that adults behave like children. They get very upset over something that's not that important.
说我们看到一位成年人来说呢，他就像小孩子一样有这种情绪，他呢就是对某件事情可能很容易就一下子愤怒生气了。
I'm sure you've seen that.
你们大家有没有见过类似的一种情绪？
So sometimes we see that adults act like children.
有时候我们就看到一位成年人 他的行为表现就像是一个一样，
That's lack of emotional control.
就意味着他失去了这个
E-
情绪的控制。
even feeling, for example, lazy and then not being able to conquer your laziness, that's a lack of emotional control.
就是有时候我们如果变得非常的懒惰，我们没法去克服这种懒惰的话呢，这其实也是一种情绪的一种失控。
Let's give an example of Arjuna.
就比如说这个阿朱那的这个例子，
In the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, he actually had an emotional breakdown.
就是呢，在刚开始的时候，他真的就是有这个很强的这个情绪。
Because if you analyze the conversation that he's having with Krishna, he's expressing how he feels, and then he's telling Krishna, based on how I feel, I don't want to fight.
所以呢，就在他跟 Krishna 的对话之间呢，Krishna 表达了他自己的感受如何，然后呢，他强调说，就是因为他的感受是这样的，所以呢，他不愿意去作战。
And basically, Krishna is saying, don't give in to your feelings, give in to your duty.
通常的话呢，Krishna 给的建议就是不要屈服于你的情绪，而你要坚守你的职责。
So you could rephrase that and say, Krishna is telling Arjuna, be emotionally controlled, be emotionally mature.
所以呢，你可能换句话说，可以说 Krishna 其实是在告诉阿朱那，你应该在情绪上变得成熟，应该控制你的情绪。
Okay, let's go to the next one. I don't have much time. We'll have to do this very briefly. Number 4.
所以呢，因为我们没有很多的时间，我们需要非常简练的来讲述这个要点。
You,
我们来看一下第四点。
number 4 is you blame another person or situation for your failure.
第四点呢，就是你为自己的失败去谴责他人，或者是指责环境。
Blaming ensures that you can't improve because you put the power to improve in another person's hands.
但是你去谴责他人呢，就显示了你无法去改正，因为你把你这个改进的这种力量放在他人的手上。
There was a devotee who wanted to take sannyas.
有一个中间的他想接受咱们
And he was married and he had a 1-year-old son and he was about 26 years old.
You mean this devotee?
Yeah. He was 26 years old, he was married, and he had a son who was 1 year old. So he asked, Prabhupada wrote him back, and, well, wait. So the devotee wrote Prabhupada and said, it's very difficult to be Krishna conscious in the Grihastha ashram. So, in other words, he was blaming the Grihastha ashram and that situation on his struggles in Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada said, this is the symptom of a neophyte devotee, that they blame somebody or they blame the situation on their lack of Krishna consciousness. So the problem is, if you made a mistake, but you blame someone else, you can't solve the problem because you're not admitting that you created the problem.
这问题就是，如果你犯了错呢，却谴责他人的
Correct?
改变的话呢，那么你就丧失了就是这
Correct.
个去承认自己这个错误的这个机会。
Okay, let's go to the next one, number 5.
那我们来看一下下一点，第5点。
You suppress your emotions and you run away from your problems.
就是你压抑情感，试图逃避你的问题。
The only way out of a problem is through the problem. You have to face it.
就是去解决问题的唯一的方法，就是你必须去面对它，
And
去经历这个问题。
if there's something that you don't want to face, probably that's one of the most important things that you need to face.
你越是不想面对这个问题，通常来说，你越需要去解决问题。
There's a saying, whatever you bury in your heart, trying to avoid, you bury it alive.
所以就是有句话就是说，任何你试图掩埋的这个问题，其实你就是把它活生生的埋在自己的心里。
So it means that if you suppress it and you keep it inside, the problem doesn't go away. It still has a negative effect on you.
所以就是说，任何你试图想要去压抑的这个问题呢，它并没有消失，它只是潜藏在你的内心当中。
So the way to understand this is just think, is there something that I'm avoiding dealing with that I should be dealing with?
那么我们可以问自己这样一个问题：我们有没有面临就是一些问题，我们试图去逃避，不想面对？
For example, maybe your rounds aren't good, but you don't confront the fact, you don't admit to yourself that they're bad, and you don't do anything to improve.
就比如说可能就是你的这个面相的这个圈数是可以的，但是呢，你并没有去做出一定的努力去改善你的这个面相的质量。
Or maybe you're not getting up early enough, but you don't think about it. You don't confront it. You don't want to deal with it.
就比如说你可能就是不愿意这个早起，然后去面对这个问题。
So this is a very, very big problem, a very common problem.
这是一个非常普遍的一个问题。
If you ever say something like, I don't want to think about it, it could be a symptom that you're running away from something you need to face.
是否有这样的体验，就是你可能就会说不愿意去想这个问题，那么这可能是一个征兆来表明你正在试图逃避你所面对的
So Prabhupada asked us to be introspective, to look at our faults and then work on them.
但他们说呢，我们对自己的这个缺点修营呢变得内省，这样的话呢，我们才可以做出努力去改善它。
So that's how you become successful. You don't give up and you deal with it no matter how difficult it is.
直接说我们并没有放弃这个问题，我们呢就是尽最大努力去解决它，最终呢我们解决了这个问题，我们成功了。
Okay, we have 5 more.
我们还有另外的5个。
And I'm going to try to finish 5 more in 20 minutes. So that's 4 minutes each one. Yeah. So this is a very brief overview, and then if you want, we can each week take one and go over it. And you decide if you want to do that.
就是因为我们时间的限制呢，我们这节课呢是非常简要的来讲述一下这些要点。如果你们想要聆听更多的话呢，我们可以以后推出系列的时候，对每一点都可以来讲这节课。
Okay, the next one is not something a lot of people are aware of. Not something they're aware of.
第六点呢，并不是很多人都意识到它有这个问题。
You have beliefs that interfere with your goals.
第六点呢，就是说你有那些跟你的目标相违背的一些信念。
Let's say you're working hard to achieve something, but you're not successful.
就比如说呢，你非常努力的想要得到某些东西，但是呢却没有成功。
It's possible that internally you have a belief that is holding you back from being successful at what you're trying to do.
也有可能呢，就是你的内在呢有那些就是阻碍你成功的信念。
And sometimes, or most of the time, in this situation, you don't even know you have that belief. You don't know you have a belief that's holding you back.
就是很多刚开始时候呢，我们甚至都意识不到我们有那些阻碍我们的成功的这些信念。
It's like someone wants to be very successful.
就比如说，如果一个人他非常想要变得成功的话，
But they have a belief that working hard is just going to make me miserable.
但是呢，他的信念却是努力工作只是会让我变得成功。
Or maybe they believe, well, Krishna consciousness should just be blissful. It shouldn't be hard work.
或者他有的信念就是，知觉应该是非常轻松快乐的，不应该去这种努力工作。
But at the same time, they want to be very Krishna conscious.
但是呢，同时他们也想变得非常知觉。
So they have a desire to be Krishna conscious or a desire to be successful, but they have beliefs that say, well, if you work hard, you won't be happy. So it's a contradictory belief.
所以呢，就是如果你是想要变得成功，或者想要变得具有非常知觉，你的这个信念呢，可能是对你达到你的目标是不利的。比如说，你认为这个努力工作呀，就是会让你痛苦，不会变得快乐等等，有这样的信念。
So if you're trying to be successful at something in Krishna consciousness, even outside of Krishna consciousness, and you're not, it may be because you have a belief that's working against you.
所以呢，不管你是在规范知觉当中，还是在规范知觉之外，想要变得成功的话呢，但是呢，你目前并没有那么成功，可能你就拥有这样的信念，阻止了你变成成功。
Like, for example, maybe you think, or you know a devotee who thinks, I can never chant good rounds.
就比如说，或者像你，或者大多数念的都会有这样的信念，觉得我永远不可能念出好的圈数的加法。
So inside, you have this belief, it's very subtle, I'll probably never be able to chant good rounds. But you're trying to chant good rounds. So you have a contradiction between what you believe and what you're trying to do.
所以呢，就比如说，你的内在的信念，你觉得自己能念出怎么样圈数的这个加法，那么就是尽管你在努力的想要去念
Or you could think, I'll never be Krishna conscious in this life. So you're practicing sadhana, but inside you're thinking, actually, I'll never really be very Krishna conscious. So you have two opposites going on.
所以呢，就是就在我们进去看空的时候，有时候我们有这样的信念啊，我这一生都不可能变得具有 Krishna 知觉了。那么尽管我们在修持这个sadhana，那
Now,
么由于我们
yeah.
有这样的信念，我们的这个行为跟我们的信念就相矛盾相冲突。那么
So
我们呈现的结果也是不一样的。
so eventually it takes Chinese is like twice as long as English. Yeah. So it takes if you think I'll never be able to chant good rounds, at some point you're going to stop trying to chant good rounds because you believe it's not possible for you. And that's how the beliefs work against you.
所以呢，有时候我们如果认为我们不能加法的话，这种信念就是谴责我们去做出努力，让我们去改善我们的加法。因为就是我们的这个信念呢，它一直在就是阻碍着我们去达到这样的一个计划。
We have a devotee here who said they're listening on Facebook and they said, I love Chinese. I think she loves Chinese because it sounds like music. Okay, we're going to read the next one. Number 7, your stories disempower you. It's like, well, let me give you an example with forgiveness. Sometimes we say, I want to forgive somebody, but I can't. And the reason we can't is because we have a story about what happened that causes, and the story causes us to be resentful.
我们之所以做不到呢，是因为我们内心中编织了这样的一个故事。这个故事呢，它解释了这个发生的这个事情，所以呢，让我们不断的内心中怀有这样的怨恨。
So the way you see the situation, which is your story, causes you to be resentful.
所以呢，其实是你看待这个事情它的一个方式，或者是你解读这个事情背后的一个故事，让你变得这样。
And the interesting thing is, when you forgive, what you did to forgive was change your story. You have a story now that when you read it, it's a story of forgiveness.
所以呢，现在有意思的一点呢，就是说，如果你还是持续不断的保持这种原来的那种解读的话，可能还是继续的怨恨。但是如果你改变你的这个故事的话呢，就可能会变得这个宽容。
Have you ever been with someone and you asked them to do something and they had this whole story why they couldn't do it, and you were thinking, they're just making excuses?
你们有没有这样的一个经历，就是你们去让别人做某些事情，然后呢，这个人他就会找各种各样的理由拒绝来做这些事情，然后呢，你的概念当中你就认为这个人只是在找借口，去做而不为。
I'm sure you've seen that.
我肯定你们见到过类似的。
Yes? Shraddha? Shraddha? Yes. So, if you have a goal You have to have a story that supports your goal, not a story that undermines your goal.
所以如果你有一个目标的话呢，你应该有可以支持你这个目标的这个背后的故事，而不是能够去削弱你目标的。
You want to do something, but your story is, well, I'm never successful at anything, so I'm probably going to fail at this. So what do you think is going to happen if that's your story? You're going to fail again.
所以呢，就是比如说你想去做某些事情，但是呢，你背后的这个故事，不是支持你去获得成功，而是让你变得失败，那么很容易说得到的结果就是你还会再次失败。
And your stories are just your beliefs manifesting in your vision of a situation.
所以呢，你的就是这个故事呢，它是通过您现在所处的这个环境来显现出来的。
Here's a good story. Here's a bad story. Many devotees have this bad story. And they say, a lot of devotees say, I can't be or I won't be Krishna conscious in this life. The problem with stories is we tend to act according to those stories. We tend to believe those stories and then we act according to them. So if you want to achieve a success in anything, you have to have a story to support your success. Like, I can do this, or I can figure it out, or something like that. Okay, we have 3 more. We're going to get done in 8 minutes, I hope. And then we'll take questions. Number 8. You respond to situations with the same negative energy that is thrown at you. You know, when Krishna gives us instructions that we should be sense-controlled or we should be compassionate, those instructions are for every situation, not just some situations. And it's so easy to be controlled and nice and compassionate in the right situation, but it's not easy in a difficult situation. So when Krishna gives instructions that we should be tolerant, we should be compassionate, we should be forgiving, he's really saying in the difficult situations, that's when you need to manifest these qualities.
所以呢，它非常限制我们，教导我们说要变得和睦的，具有怜悯之心、宽恕的时候呢，其实它尤其是针对当我们处在困境当中的时候，因为只有在困境逆境当中，我们才能够更好的去展现出这些美好的水质。
But we tend to respond to situations with how they come to us. So if things are good, it's easy to respond well. If things are bad, we tend to respond poorly.
所以呢，就是我们通常倾向于，就是我们处在怎样的环境当中，或者这个环境怎样对待我们，就以什么样的方式去回应这个环境。通常的话呢，如果他人或者环境对我们很友善，然后很有利于我们的话呢，我们也会行为各个方面很好。但是呢，当就是别人或者说环境来挑战我们的时候呢，我们就会觉得要做的这一点非常困难。
So the test is not to be nice when people are nice to you. The test is to be nice when people are not nice to you.
所以这个考验就在于，并不是说你去善待那些同样善待你的人，而是你去善待那些就是伤害了你的人。
So unsuccessful people will just respond to what's being thrown at them with the same energy that's coming to them. So if things are negative, they throw back negative, and then you can't be successful that way.
所以呢，就是那些不成功的人呢，通常他们就是以一种环境或者他人怎么对待他们的一种负面的方式，同样的去回应。那么就是如果他人或者环境让他处在这种负面的一种状态当中的话呢，他也是一种负面的方式去回应。那么所以。
Okay, number 9. You care about being right, not what or who is right. As long as I'm right, that's all I care. I don't care what's right. I just want to be right. That's false ego.
所以呢，通常情况下，我们呢，就是只在乎，只要能够证明我自己是对的，我不在乎到底什么才是对的，或者到底谁是对的。其实这是假我的一个表现。
I was once with a group of people, and I was asking, what do you think is a good quality of communication? And they said, to express yourself clearly.
所以呢，我有一次呢，就是问一群人，我问他们，你认为在一个良好的沟通当中，最重要的这个品质或者要素是什么？他们就说非常清晰的去表达自己。
And I said, no, the most important aspect of communication is to hear, to listen.
然后我就对他们说，对，最重要的这个应该是你去聆听，然后你去能够去关注别人。
And they gave me a strange face, like I was crazy, because they thought hearing has nothing to do with communication. Communication is all speaking.
然后呢，他们就是听到我这样回答之后，他们的脸上都非常的惊讶，因为在他们看来，这个沟通的话呢，就只在于这种相互的表达，只在于这种说明方面，而不是说在于这种沟通。
But hearing is more important than speaking.
但是呢，这个聆听其实比这种谈话讲什么还要重要。
But if we're attached to being right, then we always want to speak and we don't want to listen to the other person's point of view. Okay, number 10. We have 1 minute left.
这个是第10点，我们现在还有1分钟的时间。
Number 10. You try to control what you can't control.
就是你努力的去控制那些你控制不了的事情。
And maybe even worse, the other side is you don't control what you should control, which means yourself.
更糟糕的一面呢，就是说你去逃避、避免去控制那些你可以控制的，就比如说控制你自己。
And we could make that simple and just say, Krishna is the supreme controller, and when we don't let go of what we can't control, then we're imitating Krishna.
所以呢，就是可以说为什么是自根的控制？如果我们就是不愿意去让为什么掌控那些我们控制不了的事情的话呢，其实意味着我们其实就没有，我们其实在想要去模仿。
Whenever you're trying to control something that you can't control, just think, this is a spiritual crisis that I'm going through at this moment.
就是当你如果想要去控制那些你控制不了的事情的时候呢，你就认为这是你生活当中的一个基本危机。
It's not a material crisis that I can't control it. It's a spiritual crisis that I'm trying to control something I can't control. It's a spiritual weakness.
所以呢，它不是物质的这种危机，而是在生活的一种危机，就是它表明了你的这种软弱。
Yeah. We could call it the God disease. I think I'm God.
我们就可以把它称为是这个神的疾病，就是我们想要变成神的这样的疾病。
So now we're gonna let you ask questions. And we have this on Facebook, but we'll give first priority to questions from the Chinese devotees because they probably have many questions. But if we run out of questions, then we can let devotees on Facebook ask.
Okay, maybe wait a moment. I'll say my question is 让我们来看一下大家有什么问题。因为是不可反驳，所以呢，不如就是优先给到我们中国贡献的这个提问的这个机会。Hare Krishna。
Hare Krishna.
目前还没有问题，大家还没有提出问题。
Okay. We wait a moment and we'll see if anyone has any questions. Well, one thing that would be good is that with each of these, you reflect how you're challenged by these, how you make these mistakes yourself.
所以呢，我们大家可以做的一个功课呢，就是说针对每一点，大家都可以内省一下，然后看自己在某方面有没有类似的一个问题。
How often do you try to control something you can't control?
就比如说，通常的话，我们都可能会想要去控制那些我们无法控制的事情。
How often, if someone's negative towards you, do you come back with the same negativity?
但是你也可以看一下，就是你的这种频率是多少，别人对你以一种负面的方式来对待你，同样以负面的方式去回应你。
If someone mistreats you, how often do you hold on to a grudge?
就是呢，如果别人就是受
So for all of these 10, ideally the answer should be, I never do those. I never do any of these. We want to come to this point where we don't do any of these.
就是呢，我们之所以要学这10点，我们想要达到的一个目标，就是说，在我们分析过这10点之后呢，我们最终可以下结论说，我从来没有做过这样的事情，在做我以后永远不会再做这样的事情。
I was giving class last night, and I had a realization. I want to share it with you.
昨晚呢，我在网上有一个讲课，我跟你们分享一下我这个讲课的这个体悟。
That in any one of these activities, there are so many other bad qualities connected with them.
就是我们就是所有的一些不好的一些行为的话呢，其实都是背后我们有相应的不好的一些品质。
It's like if you're envious, it's not just that you're envious, there are other qualities that are supporting it.
就比如说我们嫉妒他人的话，其实之所以我们嫉妒，不光是因为我们内在有嫉妒，而是还有别的不好的品质在支撑着这个嫉妒。
It like envy or anger or greed or lust, it comes as a whole package. It just doesn't come by itself.
就比如说，通常的话，这个愤怒、嫉妒、贪婪、色欲，他们都是打包一起来的，并不是说某一个它单独就出现的。
So let's say I get angry easily or I'm intolerant. Then we should think there are many other problems that I have that are fostering or supporting that problem. It's not just I have anger, but there are many things around it.
就比如说，我特别容易愤怒，那么呢，我所有的问题并不是愤怒本身，而是说我背后还有很多的不好的品质来，就是加强这个愤怒，不光是愤怒本身。
Because when you exhibit a quality in the mode of ignorance, it means now you're close to all these, or you're dealing with all these other tamasic qualities as well.
因为这个当你去展现出处在你内心态的某一个坏脾气的时候呢，其实同时你都需要去处理在你内心态的其他的这些不好的品质，并不光是针对这个你所展现出来的这个不好的品质。
But the same thing is true when you exhibit good qualities.
其实相同的这个情景也同样适用于就是如果你身上体现出某一个很美好的品质的时候是一样的。
For example,
就比如说，
if you exhibit forgiveness,
如果你展现出这个宽恕的美好品质的话，
it also contains compassion, it contains empathy, it contains emotional maturity. It all comes together in a package.
就是如果你有这个宽恕的这个品质的话呢，其实你背后同样有这种怜悯之心，有同理心，同时呢，你的这个情感是非常平和的。
So here's the good news. And I'm going to give you some bad news and some good news.
在这里呢，我同样告诉你们一些坏消息和一些好消息。
And I'll give you the bad news good because we don't want to end with bad news. I'll give you the bad news first because we don't want to end with bad news. We want to end with good news.
我呢会首先告诉你们坏消息，因为我想以这个好消息来结束。
So if you look at these 10 dysfunctions we're discussing, you
来看这个
you see they're kind of similar. And you could see that someone who has one likely has them all. And then if you look at the good qualities, it's the same thing. One who's forgiving tends to have so many other good qualities. One who's compassionate tends to have so many other good qualities because it's all coming from Sat Lagun, and that's where those good qualities reside. Kind of the way I look at it, kind of like if you give in to your lower qualities, it's like you just moved into a neighborhood of criminals and you're surrounded by criminals. In other words, like anger is in the neighborhood of resentment, it's in the neighborhood of envy, it's in the neighborhood of intolerance. It's just one bad quality is surrounded by many other bad qualities, nurtured by many other bad qualities. And so, similarly, one good quality is like a different neighborhood surrounded by so many other good qualities. Okay, I just wanted to share that with you because I felt that was very important. We have a question? Okay, we're waiting for a question. Yeah.
question is, as well educated, that if someone has some bad qualities, we should treat some distance from this person.
Uh-huh.
So you agree
Should we keep
yeah,
distance? Yeah, should we keep distance from people who have a bad effect on us? That's the question?
yeah, we should get close to this person. Yeah, this is do you agree with this?
Yes. If you're not strong enough to help them, then yes, you get negatively affected by them, then you have to protect yourself.
是的，就是如果你自己不够的有力量，然后不会受到他们的影响的时候呢，那么你这个时候就尽量跟他们保持一定的距离，否则的话呢，你就会同样受到他们这种负面的一个影响。
If you're stronger in Krishna consciousness, then you'll be able to purify them or make them more positive. But if they're having a negative effect on you, then you have to create some boundaries. That's the natural principle of bhakti.
所以呢，就是如果你自己在推导世界中足够的有力量的话呢，那么你是可以去净化这个人，然后呢去寻找到某种方法，让这个人变得更加的这种积极，去帮助他。当你没有足够的力量的时候呢，如果你还会受到他的这个负面的影响，那么你应该就是跟他保持一定的距离，为自己制造一个就是保护的一个这种圈。然后这样的话呢，这是我们在关爱服务的过程中的一个原则。
Is that okay?
Okay.
Because a principle of bhakti is one of the most important principles is association. So we have to get good association.
因为在我们这个关爱服务当中，一个最重要的原则就是说联谊，所以呢，我们应该去寻找这种好的联谊。
So bad association is going to have a bad effect on us.
所以呢，坏的联谊肯定对我们会有一些坏的影响。
Okay.
I have some questions.
Okay. Yes.
So sometimes I become very lazy and
Yes.
also do not do so many clean service.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm just in a mode of goodness. So how can I overcome it?
Wait a minute. Did you?
Laziness?
All right.
Okay.
You can translate.
Maybe put that translated.
You can translate.
我的
Yeah.
问题呢，就是说，有时候呢，我就会变得非常的懒惰，然后就会懒得做很多清洁的工作。那么，我就是想知道这个懒惰它的这些邻居都是什么，然后呢，如何能够更好的去克服这种懒惰。
Did you say I get lazy because I'm in the mode of goodness and I don't clean? Is that what you said? Okay. She said sometimes I get lazy and I don't want to clean, and like mode of goodness, just want to chant and not do anything. No, not cleaning is the mode of ignorance. It's not the mode of goodness. That's the first point. Yeah, I thought you said good. I thought you said when I get in the mode of goodness, I don't want to clean. So what I would say is we have to learn how to transcend our conditioning and our environment so that we can act properly no matter what environment we're in.
所以呢，我们需要去学会如何去超越或者是跨越我们目前受限制的这个条件或者环境。那么这样的话呢，我们就不会就是受此影响，我们可以恰当的去行动。
I was actually thinking about this very thing this morning because our environment now, because we're all home, is so much different than our normal environment.
所以呢，我今天早上也在考虑这样的类似的问题，因为目前在这样一个大环境之下，我们大多数人都是可能待在家里，就是处在这样的一种环境当中。
So we're all affected a little differently now because we're just home. Some of you are home alone. Some of you, get up from bed and wear your pajamas till noon. It's different lifestyle.
所以呢，可能目前我们不同的人面临的这种环境，就是不太一样。有的人可能就独自一人待在家里，可能这样的话呢，他们就是懒得能够起床，然后呢会经常看一些新闻呀，然后去闲聊等等。
Yes. So that's something we have to meditate on. How despite my environment, I can still remain steady in my convictions and my practices. That's what we have to perfect.
所以呢，就是不管我们处在怎样的一个环境当中，目前的处境是什么，那么我们应该学会如何让自己保持稳定，就是如何能够说服自己，让自己处在任何环境当中都可以保持。
So, like, if we use you as an example, then within the next 24 hours, you're going to clean your whole house because you know it's the right thing to do, and you're not going to let the environment bother you, and you're in your determination, you're going to decide, and you're going to do it. So that's what I suggest. Just do it.
就比如说拿我来举例的话呢，就是那么可能就是接下来的这个24小时之内，我就应该真的是行动起来，然后呢去打扫就是家里的这些卫生，因为这个不干净的环境确实就是打扰到了我，那么我就决定下一个决心，就是一定要去做这样的事情，就只是去做它。
I have a really good question on Facebook.
现在在 Facebook 上也有一个非常好的问题。
What if someone is really hardworking? You can translate? What if someone is hardworking? I'm reading a question on Facebook, so you can translate it.
Okay.
What if someone is really hardworking? This is the question. You just have to translate it. I'm not.
Okay. 就是这个问题，就是说，是不是真的有人就是去努力的去工作
And punctual, tolerant, and compassionate.
然后呢，他呢同时也非常的准时，非常的容忍，然后呢，非常的就是宽恕。
But that person has a problem controlling lust.
但是呢，就是具备上面所有这些美好品质的这个人呢，他却就是 非常难以控制他的色欲。
And so the question is, I just said when you have one bad quality, they're surrounded by many. And he's saying, but there's many good qualities and just one bad. So how does that fit together? That's the question.
因为刚才我在讲课程当中提到了，如果你有一项坏的品质呢，跟这个坏的品质相邻的，你会有很多彼此相关的坏的品质。那么这个问题就是说，为什么还有这样一种情况？就是有些人可能他拥有很多好的品质，可能就只有一个不好的品质。
Well, if you study the story of Ajamil, Prabhupada says, because he became attracted to a prostitute, so many bad qualities developed within him.
就是我们看这个阿丹米叶的他的这个故事呢，上他爸的就评述说，他就是之所以受到的这个妓女的吸引，其实是因为他身上有很多就是不好的品质。
But in looking at this question, there's a paradox in the question.
我们看一下，就是刚才这个经验的提出的这个问题，其实它其实有一些这个暗示的。
The question is, what if someone is compassionate? What if someone is tolerant? They're hardworking. They have other good qualities, but they're lusty.
为什么有些人他们看起来非常有怜悯之心，然后呢又很容忍，同时的努力工作，但是呢却非常的就是有这种色欲之心。
One of the paradoxes is that lust destroys compassion.
其中的一个矛盾之处呢，就是说，其实这个色欲它其实是摧毁这个怜悯之心的。
Because compassion means to think about how to benefit another person, and lust is how to enjoy or get from the other person.
怜悯之心呢，它就意味着就是去考虑别人的这个益处，而这个色欲呢，它就意味着如何去享受，如何去从这个人身上去获得某些东西。
And if one is lusty, it means one is not tolerating their lust. They're giving into it. So they're not tolerant and they're not compassionate.
就是一位具有色欲的人呢，他就是通常的话，他无法做到容忍，就是他其实是有矛盾的在这里。
And I would just ask you to try to meditate on think of lust like the center of the wheel and think what are all the spokes connected to that lust. And there's so many things connected to it. Addictive mentality and so many other aspects of lack of control.
你们以这个色欲为中心，想象色欲周围的这个一个圈儿，那么就是围绕着色欲的这些不好的品质都有哪些？就比如说就是无法自控啊，还有就是说去没有这种容忍啊，无法做的容忍。
It's amazing. It's amazing how much is connected to one bad quality. How many other things are around it? We don't always realize how much is there, but there's a lot there.
其实我们如果做这样一个冥想，就会非常惊讶的发现，在我们的某一个不好的品质背后，其实是有那么多的不好的品质在支撑着它。
You know, it's kind of like saying, you know, a terrorist is a good father. He just goes out during the day killing people, but he comes home and he's a very compassionate father. That's not really compassion. So you may be defining compassion in a different way.
就比如说一个父亲他在外面杀了很多人，但是他回到家之后呢，他就表现出是一个非常慈善的一位父亲。那么其实他的这种慈善其实并不是真正的慈善。那么我们其实可以去再重新定义一下你的这个就是这个慈善的这个含义。
Yeah, it's a big discussion. It's a good question, and it's a big discussion, an important discussion.
其实这个问题是一个非常好的问题，而且就是围绕这个问题，我们可以有很多这些重要的一些讨论。
But we have to end now. We've gone for an hour and a half.
但是我们现在需要结束我们的讲课了，因为已经有1个半小时了。
So,
还有一个问题，还有 Krishna， 不好意思。
还有一个问题是吗？
刚刚发的。
Another question.
好。当一个人在说另一个人的坏话，而这个人恰好我也不喜欢，这时我该怎么做？感恩。
Okay. I heard someone speak bad words toward another person, and this person I also didn't like. So what should
you hear somebody speaking bad about another person, but you also don't like that person. So what? You kind of enjoy hearing that? Is that what she's saying?
Yeah.
What do? You go home and look in the mirror and look at yourself and start talking to yourself and saying how stupid you are and how bad you are. That I also like hearing bad things about other people.
对着镜子，然后呢去反思一下，看看你自己到底是多么的愚蠢，多么的糟糕，因为你喜欢听就是对他人的这样不好的。
Like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, what did he say? I will demonstrate what he said. If this happens, this is what you do. You take a shoe and you bang your head. Boom, 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 boom. That's what you do. That's the solution.
巴基斯坦的萨拉斯瓦蒂塔克呢，他对这样的问题就有一个很好的建议，就是你可以就是拿着这个鞋子在你的头上敲几下。
That's the only solution. Realize it's Maya teasing you. Temptation. You have to control that temptation. Okay?
现在可以了吗？还有问题吗？
现在没有问题了，没有了。
Okay, yeah, that's all.
So we can end now, or we have another question?
That's all. There are no questions.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can end for now. And so we're going to decide if we want to continue these classes regularly and on this topic or another topic. And we'll let everybody know if we want to save Wednesday morning for Chinese. And we'll discuss that. And then we'll get back to you. We'll let everybody know.
OK， 就是在这个课程之后呢，给予大家对这个课程的反馈呢，我们会就是计划看要不要开这个课程系列的更详细的一个讲述，就是时候会公告大家。
And for those of you who understand English, tomorrow at 8 a.m. and every morning at 8 a.m. we have class, which is 8 p.m. your time in China.
就是呢，Maharaji 呢，他在网上呢，每天就是中国的这个晚上8点钟的时候，他有一个讲课，每天都会有。如果会英语的话，可以上网听。But we also need a VPN.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your wonderful lecture.
Hare Krishna.
I learned a lot.
Okay, good. Good. And so be good, improve yourself, and we'll see you soon. Hare Krishna.
我们需要就是自己处在良好的状态当中，然后呢去改善自己。
Okay.
Hi Krishna, have a nice day.
Thank you.
And happy in Krishna consciousness.
Thank you. You too. Haribol.
Haribol.
Enjoy.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada. Gauranga Nityananda. So, everyone, okay. Hare Krishna.